All right, Greg McElroy, ESPN commentator and Alabama honk, had this to say about the departure of Nick Saban from Alabama. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, he thinks that Georgia is the biggest benefactor of Nick Saban leaving. I think on paper it definitely looks that way, especially when you get a Tavares Robinson. Just him not being on the Alabama staff is a
Yeah.
benefit to Georgia, but him being is twice the benefit. But I think that we have to kind of examine this a little bit deeper. Georgia just came off of back-to-back national championships, and Nick Saban was around. So is Georgia really the team that benefits the most from him leaving? I think you could argue maybe it's some other SEC schools just because, I mean, whether he's around or not, Georgia has become what it is.
That's true. Do you think, though, that this puts jet fuel or rocket fuel, whatever you want to call it, into what Georgia's, produced?
I mean, yeah, I mean, and then you can look at it the other way. If he wasn't around, does Georgia win in 2017? Are we talking
Yes.
about Kirby having four rings? Are we talking about probably, right? I mean, this season it would have seemed that way, right? So we're talking about 3 to 4 rings possibly instead of two in this Kirby Smart era if he wasn't around. So there's definitely both sides to it. But I mean, the week to week of the SEC, where the last decade plus, it was just almost a lock that Alabama was going to beat you, right? I mean, they won most of their games,
Yep.
but now Ole Miss is a little bit on the rise. LSU, what's going to happen with them? Now Texas is in play. Does it benefit the other schools a little bit more because that's another potential win that was almost like a loss every single year? I think it could benefit some of those schools that were in the West. Now that's obviously out the window. But I think for Georgia, it was going to be different regardless moving into this next phase of college football because it's not just East versus West. So the way the last few years it felt like, oh, well, it's probably going to be Georgia versus Alabama. And the SEC championship's a little bit muddier now, right? You kind of lean towards Georgia and Texas at the moment, but I think it can shake out a few different ways because I think there are a few pretty good teams in the SEC. So I think it's different in that regard, and the value of that would have went down anyway moving into let's face it, this is a new phase of college football. What we're entering, we've never done, right? And now it's kind of all the culminations are heading into one. But I think with him being gone, it obviously benefits the whole country outside of Alabama. But for Georgia, the benefits are real. But I think just pointing to them and saying it benefits them the most is you got to look at it deeper.
Why doesn't it benefit Tennessee and Auburn more? I mean, that's kind of, you know, the yin to the yang of Alabama is Auburn. Why wouldn't Auburn be the one that's most benefited? Why is he just saying, hey, Georgia is in the best position now that Nick's not there? There's no one really in their way in the league, which I'm not sure I would buy that argument necessarily, but Alabama's not in their way. Um, they will do more with it. I mean, why is it that Auburn can't come up right now?
I mean, it's on Auburn to do that. I
Right.
mean, and especially in that rivalry, right? Especially when it's in Jordan Hare Stadium, literally anything happens. Everything you can think of that's possible in a football game happens when those two teams play in Jordan Hare. But I agree. A conversation I feel like we've had a few times over the last couple of years is who's got it the worst right now? Think about Auburn. They've got to deal with Georgia all of a sudden becoming what Alabama has been, and these are their two biggest rivals, and they're just getting pounded by them. I think you're right. I think it benefits teams like them that have to play Alabama every single year. Georgia never had to do that, right? It just happened to happen because they were playing in the postseason games. But Georgia never had to go through Alabama every single year, the way it has to play Auburn every single year, the way it has to play Florida every single year. So I think it benefits the teams that have to deal with them on a yearly basis more often. I know that's a little bit different now, and there's going to be more of a schedule rotation. But I mean, I agree with you on that front. It's this is great for Auburn. It's great for recruiting for Auburn. I think that's one of the biggest wins for it. The Alabama brand is the Alabama brand, right? But we saw what the fallout was of Nick Saban not being there. Those guys committed to Nick Saban, but I mean, we don't know yet what kind of classes Kalen DeBoer can bring into Alabama. Well, we're going to find out over the next year or two,
Yeah.
but we're not sure. And we've never seen him do that on a sustained level. Will it be easier for him with that A on his chest? Probably, probably, but I think it's going to be tough.
When this game moved from Birmingham for good to the campuses, which was for good in 2000, the year 2000, Auburn won, I think, 7 of 8 games. Like they had never lost in Tuscaloosa until 2008, which was Nick's first game against them. But like they ran the table against them a lot from '86 for like a 20-year period. Auburn was the lead in that game, in that rivalry, and they were the lead against Georgia in that bulk of that time too. Particularly in the 90s, I would say, maybe not in the 2000s as much, but in the late 80s to the early 90s. But I think all of college football is gonna, you got to think about it. Clemson would probably have another national championship, I guess, from the 15 team, maybe. I mean, I don't know. Nick's gotten into a lot of people's ways. I mean, Florida in 2009 was clearly the second best team in the country. They just lost the wrong game in the SEC championship game, and that prevented them from going on to play. There was no playoff at the time. But I do think, Nick leaving helps everybody. Alabama has been a great program for a long time. They're still going to be a really good program. They're just not going to be as elite as they were. That's the thing that I think more than anything. The other thing I wonder, looking at the schedule here for the league, Alabama this season plays Wisconsin, Georgia, Tennessee, Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma, and Auburn. I mean, they have a lot of legitimate games that they could lose. I mean, I didn't mention South Carolina. That game's in Tuscaloosa. They're not going to lose that game, I don't think. But they got to go to Oklahoma, go to Baton Rouge. They host Georgia, where they're almost a 4-point dog. I mean, they're going to be they're an underdog at LSU. I haven't seen any other lines out, but like, if Auburn wanted to make a move, now they've got their chance. Or anybody, LSU, whoever.
Is Hugh Freeze their guy? I mean,
I don't know yet. I don't think the answer is no necessarily yet.
Not necessarily. But you can.
I'm sorry, Ryan. It's been a bad 6 weeks for Auburn. Nick leaving is good, but it's been a rough looking 6 weeks for Auburn.
Yeah, it has been. But you can do it at Auburn, right?
You can.
It almost happened twice in the last 15 years. Now, Cam Newton is Cam Newton. Right. But then in 2013, I mean, they had a legitimate chance to do it. They needed some magic.
Well, in 2004, they were an undefeated team and didn't play for a national championship, which was absurd. But, this is what we do.
Yeah. But I think it benefits the whole league. It does, because you want cross sports examples. When you have a guy that's dominant like that, we're seeing it right now in the NFL with Patrick Mahomes. What's happening? Guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and whoever, they're not making it to the Super Bowl. Yeah. They're not even making it to the Super Bowl. If they were in the other conference, it might be a little bit different. So you see that with Jordan in the 90s. What was happening? They were preventing other greats from winning. Yeah. So that's what we've seen with Alabama, and it has maybe it's affected Georgia the most in terms of championships, but on the week-to-week, year-to-year grind, it helps the other SEC teams a lot out too.
LSU and Georgia are best positioned to take advantage of Alabama's tick backwards. I don't think Auburn's out of position. Tennessee, I don't know.
That's what I was going to bring up. Does it actually benefit LSU the most? Is this their chance to just get a hold on that area?
But
because of the rise of Texas, it makes it harder.
Well, the thing about the SEC right now is, with the exception of Alabama, everybody sort of has the guy they want or they've picked. I mean, I don't think that's the case with Alabama or Florida. But, like just across the league, Heupel's had success at Tennessee, Georgia with Kirby, certainly LSU and Brian Kelly winning the division. That's, A&M, that's a change. Sarkisian has been very good at Texas, obviously, this past season. Drinkwitz had success at Missouri. There's been a lot of success at the league. Even Shane Beamer,
even Mark Stoops, right? They like him.
Sure.
They want him in town. So you're right. Most of the teams that are competitive in the league have the guy that they feel like is their guy that they can win with.
And you know, like you can say what you want about Sam Pittman, but he's had about as much success at Arkansas as anybody's had here lately since Houston Nutt's time in the middle 2000s. I mean, like it's um it's just going to be different without just sort of rolling Alabama in there and penciling them in to win the West, because there is no West. And then are people going to pencil them in to be in the championship game? I think people are going to pencil Georgia in. I don't know if they're going to pencil. I don't know who the two is. Is it Bama? Is it Georgia? Is it Bama? Is it Georgia, Bama, LSU, or Texas? Which is the number two? I would think most people say Georgia's the one, but who is the second? That's not as clear.
People are leaning Texas right now.
They are.
It's just what it is. I kind of got to see it in the league, but I believe it too. I think they are probably the two in the league this year, assuming that Georgia's the one.
They're a 1.5 underdog to Georgia at home.
Exactly. It tells you what everyone thinks about Georgia.
Yeah, well, it's time. You got to go do it.
All right. Thinks about Georgia.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for watching.